everyone. It's Dee from CatalystEnergies. Thanks for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is your daily catalyst for December 30th, 2019. This chart here is for 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that would be noon Eastern Standard Time and 5 p.m. on the 30th, 2019 for the UK time. So we've had the moon in Aquarius for most of the weekend for us, and starting Friday night, early Saturday morning. So as of today, the moon is moving into Pisces, which I think is really going to soften some edges that may have developed and help really find some inspiration and some beauty and creativity with all this heaviness in Capricorn. But before we get to that, let's talk about the weekend. Starting Friday night, early Saturday morning, the moon was moving through Aquarius, and this could have us feeling a little aloof or detached emotionally. The moon does represent how we feel and our moods as they transpire through, you know, the days of the month. I mean, our moods do shift pretty regularly, and that is embodied by the transit of the moon, the orbit of the moon around the Earth. Our detachment may seem aloof, but what we're really tapping into is something beyond our own desires and wants, and it's a drive to act for the collective good. That's Aquarius is all about, the collective good, the collective consciousness. And there's an element of freedom and rebellion as well, because it's often the revolutionary or the rebellious person that maybe defies the laws or the orders in order to do what's actually best for everyone. And so there is a certain amount of freedom and liberation that we may have felt mentally or intellectually this weekend as the moon moved through Aquarius. After the Capricorn lineup on Friday, with the moon conjuncting both Saturn and Pluto, and then the sun conjuncting with Jupiter, I feel like this moon in Aquarius might have felt like a release in some ways, a liberation emotionally, and we could have really harnessed that over the weekend. So we kick off today and this week really with the sun, this more Capricorn energy, the sun lining up with the South Node while the moon is still in Aquarius. This is happening about midnight Pacific Standard Time, so 3 a.m., 3:15 a.m. East Coast time, and first thing in the morning, 8 a.m. UK time. And we will have the Aquarius moon like in the later degrees of Aquarius. So I think this is really could really help release this energy if that's what we're choosing to do. If we recognize that the South Node collectively represents the experiences we've already mastered and we need to let go of in order to move forward, the sun supports a recognition of that power inherent in that energy, while the moon allows us to emotionally release from it with the help of Aquarius. However, if we aren't aware of these dynamics and how they play out in our lives, and we're just going along being unawakened and waiting for things to happen to us, the sun may further encourage acting on the South Node. And I talked about it in the weekend report, how this degree of the Sabian symbol degree for where the South Node is an angel carrying a harp, and it's the idea of divine attunement. And because it's in Capricorn, which is all about building structures and institutions, it's really this drive to reach your bottom line, because you know that you are in resonance with the divine plan, with God, with angels, however you want to conceptualize it. It's this idea that there is a divine path or mission to what you're building. And while that has worked for us in the past, and that is definitely an energy that's been mastered over and over, it's also been used to justify a lot of horrific activities. And so it's very important that we understand what that energy represents for us collectively and also individually, and let the sun shine on it to illuminate it and to give us a very clear picture of what's happening. The North Node in Cancer has been down here, all alone in Cancer, has been teaching us that we have source within us, and that's really all we need to feel safe and secure and to reach our full potential, right? Because the fourth house is the Cancer house. That's the house of home and family, emotional security, support, containment. And then the fifth house is self-expression. And so once we feel secure, we can then move into this area where we are maximizing our potential in our creative expression. And the North Node here collectively has been showing us the way to trust ourselves and trust what we are cultivating within to support us in order to move into this path of reaching our highest potential. And that's the whole mission of CatalystEnergies, which is really great. That it's a nice segue into this, because the mission of this organization is to facilitate that activation of your highest potential in a number of different ways. And so this is what the North Node has been teaching us. And so the South Node is showing us where it's time to let go of maybe putting all of our trust and faith into these outer structures and be more willing to trust ourselves. And the sun is really illuminating that today. So depending on where you are with things, you could take advantage of this illumination, or it could supercharge this energy, staying attached to this energy, which ultimately is going to, you know, cause a lot of friction down the line as 2020 starts to really kick into gear. The moon, so now we have the moon coming into Pisces. Then here's the moon in Pisces, 0 degrees Pisces as of 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And before that happens, though, okay, here's this square to Mars and Scorpio shortly after the Sun and South Node conjunction. Shortly after that, the moon in the late degrees of Aquarius squares Mars and Scorpio. And then she goes void off course until she moves into Pisces later, which is, I think, is where the edges will soften to almost nothing in some cases, and bring us emotionally back to inspiration, creativity, a connection to the divine and our intuition. Aquarius and Scorpio naturally square each other. They're both fixed energies. One is air and one is water. The intensity and the depth of Scorpio make it very difficult to stay free and liberated, because Scorpio brings us back to the things that we can't avoid looking at. And they're not exactly, nobody wants to face death. And that is the Scorpio, that is the essence of the Scorpio energy, is the death and the cycle of death and rebirth. Mars is almost going to demand some attention to the work he's been doing here, and possibly even drag us down if we aren't willing to give him the acknowledgement about what Mars has been digging up for us. It may be best to give our attention to that inner vision that we have been cultivating as a result of his work, rather than staying in that Aquarius headspace. As the moon then moves into Pisces, she spends the day making sextiles with Mercury, who is now in Capricorn, very serious. Uranus, still retrograde in Taurus, and then ultimately with Jupiter also moving forward in Capricorn. Mercury may be very serious in his mode of communication, but the moon in Pisces could stimulate some intuitive or psychic messages or dreams, and will likely, like I said, soften the edges, especially with Uranus and Taurus, perhaps giving us a chance to actually heal, which would be really nice. I just feel like that people in their body and their physical lives have been continuing to, every time this Uranus is aspected by something, we tend to feel it again. And so there's like physical issues that keep coming up, or issues around resources, or our physical location, like our house, you know, where we live, like our things around us. It would be nice to get some relief, and I think that the moon in Pisces could provide that for a little bit. Ultimately, this connection from the moon will support the trine that is eventually going to happen between Mercury and Uranus today. You can see here Mercury in Capricorn and a trine to Uranus. It's going to happen today. The tone of Mercury is very serious, getting down to business, and completely supportive of the shifts from Mercury. In fact, it might be kind of a stern, like, no, this is what needs to happen. The moon is giving us a way to be inspired about it, to give us some hope and some inspiration and some connection, collectively, you know, emotionally, feeling like we're not alone. This is going to definitely support this trine even further, because Mercury in Capricorn can be stern and no nonsense, and and a little, just not caring about how you feel about things. The information's going to come in, and it's going to be about what's for the best for the long term. So she has that same sextile with Jupiter later tonight, as I said, and this could be a really nice opportunity to connect with the mastery of what we're building. Again, more inspiration, connection, psychic intuition, some healing, and then Jupiter is the master, the guru, the teacher, the leader, the optimism, the good fortune, and then coming into Capricorn, it's still working on building something. Jupiter was the original ruler of Pisces before Neptune was discovered. So both being mutable energies, Pisces and Sagittarius, which is Jupiter's the ruler of Sagittarius as well, being both mutable energies that are wide and expansive energies. So Jupiter in Capricorn has been really difficult, I think, for people to adjust to. Not everybody, but some people are really having a hard time. It's kind of like juggling when you don't know how to juggle. So it can be really frustrating when you're learning how to juggle something and you're constantly dropping the ball. It's very discouraging to do this. The moon in Pisces is like that moment where you just let go and you feel the force in a way, and you actually start juggling because you stopped overthinking it and you actually just connected into the force, basically. And all of a sudden you start to juggle and you're like, oh, this is how it is. And then from there you start building muscle memory. But the moon in Pisces just lets you totally tune in. And Jupiter with this juggle, I just feel like a lot of people have been struggling trying to make sense of it. And the moon is going to really help if we take advantage of it. The flip side of a moon in Pisces is the potential for total delusion and getting lost in the fog. This energy would still be supportive of Jupiter if we're using that energy to build something for the purposes of control. I mean, Jupiter wasn't always that awesome, and often he used his power and position to get what he wanted and to manipulate situations. So with this dogmatic or self-righteous approach and an energy of empire building, which is Capricorn, and materialism, our delusions could definitely support this. If we are just like lost in the light of the moon in the water, there's no real sense of a clear vision, and we could definitely get lost. And you can definitely see this out in the collective right now. The astrological transits are the same for everyone, yet it's our choices that make a difference in how the energy is utilized. So moon in Pisces today, really nice opportunity for healing, for connection, for creativity, inspiration, especially when it comes to what we are building, what's for the long term, and also what we're going to let go of, and being okay with that, and trusting ourselves and trusting what we're cultivating within our own connection to source, as opposed to what's already out there that we feel like that we need to align with in order to be safe and secure. I think it's an important piece of advice to hold on to as we approach 2020 and beyond, is that we always have a choice with where to direct our energy, our thoughts, and our attention. Victimization is something that we can't control. There are things that happen to us that we can't have any control over. But the state of victimhood is something we have complete control over. And I got this concept, I've always had a sense of this concept, but it was something that I read recently in a book by a woman named Edith Eger, and she is an Auschwitz survivor and became a clinical psychologist later in life, when she realized, what PTSD was and how she was experiencing it. And she is very, she has a lot to say on this issue of victimization versus victimhood, and how she lived that experience during her time in the concentration camps. And I think that when you see it play out in such an extreme scenario, and to have somebody that has been there come to these conclusions as well, I think it's really worth considering and keeping with us. And so she says, state of victimhood is something we have victimization is something that we can't necessarily control, but the state of victimhood, how we see ourselves, how we identify, is something we have complete control over. So we have a choice whether we want to be conscious creators and authors of our own story, or stay in that victimhood role, constantly disempowering ourselves. So I'm going to leave you with that message, because I think that's a great place to end this, and something to really think about and carry with you. I'll see you tomorrow for the Daily Catalyst for New Year's Eve. And if you are interested in reading and reaching out, or to ask any questions, all my information is in the description box below. I'm going to be offering a special rate for year ahead readings. I'll have that on my Facebook page very soon. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate every single one of you that's here and participating in this with me. And I will see you later. Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.